angry. Angrier. Angriest. The child was angry, but became angrier when his toy was taken away, and ended up throwing the angriest tantrum I had ever witnessed. Bad. Worse. Worst. The traffic was bad, but it got worse as the day went on, and by evening it was the worst I had ever seen. Big. Bigger. Biggest. The house was big, but the castle was bigger, and the skyscraper was the biggest of all. Bitter. Bitterer. Bitterest. The coffee was bitter, but the aftertaste was even bitterer, and it was the bitterest thing I had ever tasted. Black. Blacker. Blackest. The midnight sky was black, but the depths of the cave were even blacker, and the pupils of the owl's eyes were the blackest of all. Bland. Blander. Blandest. The food was bland, but the atmosphere was even blander, and the service was the blandest of all. Bloody. Bloodier. Bloodiest. The battle was bloody, but the subsequent conflict was bloodier, and the third battle was the bloodiest of all. Blue. Bluer. Bluest. The sky was blue, but it became bluer as the sun rose, and by midday it was the bluest I had ever seen. Bold. Bolder. Boldest. The explorer's journey was bold, but his crossing of the treacherous mountains was bolder, and his descent into the uncharted valley was the boldest feat of all. Bossy. Bossier. Bossiest. The kids were bossy at first, but they got bossier as the day went on, and by evening they were the bossiest I had ever seen. Brave. Braver. Bravest. The firefighter was brave, but the police officer was braver, and the soldier was the bravest of them all. Brief. Briefer. Briefest. The meeting was brief, but the presentation was even briefer, and the closing remarks were the briefest of all. Bright. Brighter. Brightest. The sun is bright, but the moon's light is brighter, and the stars are the brightest of all. Broad. Broader. Broadest. The river was so broad that it took us an hour to cross it, and the further we went, the broader it became, until finally we reached the broadest point, where it was as wide as a lake. Busy. Busier. Busiest. The restaurant was busy, but it got busier as the night went on, and by dinner time it was the busiest I had ever seen it. Calm. Calmer. Calmest. The waves were calm in the morning, but they got calmer in the afternoon, and by evening they were the calmest I had ever seen them. Cheap. Cheaper. Cheapest. The old car was cheap, but the new one was even cheaper, and the used one was the cheapest of all. Chewy. Chewier. Chewiest. Gummy bears are chewy, but caramels are chewier, and taffy is the chewiest candy I know. Chubby. Chubbier. Chubbiest. The baby's cheeks were chubby, but the toddlers were chubbier, and the puppies were the chubbiest I had ever seen. Classy. Classier. Classiest. While the hotel was classy, the restaurant was classier, and the rooftop bar was the classiest of all. Clean. Cleaner. Cleanest. The room was already clean, but the maid gave it an even cleaner look with her final touch-ups, leaving it the cleanest I had ever seen. Clear. Clear. Clearest. The instructions were clear, but the directions were clearer, and the map was the clearest of all. Clever. Cleverer. Cleverest. The fox was clever, but the raccoon was cleverer, and the coyote was the cleverest of all. Close. Closer. Closest. The stars were close, but the moon was closer, and the sun was the closest star to Earth. Cloudy, cloudier, cloudiest. The sky was cloudy this morning, but it got cloudier as the day progressed, and by afternoon it was the cloudiest I had ever seen. Clumsy, clumsier, clumsiest. My new puppy is still a little clumsy, but he's getting clumsier every day, and I'm worried he's going to be the clumsiest dog I've ever seen. Coarse, coarser, coarsest. The fabric of the shirt was coarse, but the pants were coarser, and the socks were the coarsest of all. Cold, colder, coldest. It was a cold day, but the night was colder, and the following morning was the coldest of all. Cool, cooler, coolest. The new ice cream shop has cool flavors, but the ones with chocolate are cooler, and the ones with mint are the coolest of all. Crazy, crazier, craziest. The crowd went crazy at the concert, but the craziest moment was when the lead singer jumped into the audience. Creamy, creamier, creamiest. The chocolate mousse was creamy, but the vanilla panna cotta was even creamier, and the pistachio gelato was the creamiest of all. Creepy, creepier, creepiest. The old abandoned house was creepy, but the abandoned dollhouse inside was even creepier, and the dollhouse's tiny, empty cradles were the creepiest of all. Crispy, crispier, crispiest. The French fries were crispy, but the onion rings were even crispier, and the chicken wings were the crispiest of all. Crunchy, crunchier, crunchiest. The apples were crunchy, but the carrots were crunchier, and the celery was the crunchiest of all. Curly, curly, curliest. My hair is curly, but my sister's hair is curlier, and my mom has the curliest hair of us all. Curvy, curvier, curviest. The road wooed its way through the curvy hills, becoming curvier as it ascended, until it reached its curviest point at the top of the mountain. Cute, cuter, cutest. The baby kitten was cute, but her sister was even cuter, and the puppy was the cutest of all. Damp, damper, dampest. The basement was damp, but the bathroom was damper, and the crawl space was the dampest of all. Dark, darker, darkest. The forest was dark, but the deeper I went, the darker it got, until finally I reached the darkest part of the forest, where I could barely see my hand in front of my face. Deadly, deadlier, deadliest. The viper's venom was deadly, but its bite was even deadlier when it was provoked, and it was the deadliest when it was cornered. Deep, deeper, deepest. The ocean is deep, but the Mariana Trench is deeper, and Challenger Deep is the deepest point on Earth. Dense, denser, densest. The forest was dense, but the jungle was denser, and the core of the rainforest was the densest I had ever seen. Dirty, dirtier, dirtiest. The kitchen is dirty, but the bathroom is dirtier, and my bedroom is the dirtiest of all. Dry, drier, driest. The soil was dry, but the plants in the shade were drier, and the ones in the direct sun were the driest of all. Dull, duller, dullest. Her presentation was dull, but his was duller, and hers was the dullest I had ever heard. Dumb, dumber, dumbest. The math problem was dumb, but the next one was even dumber, and the last one was the dumbest of all. Dusty, dustier, dustiest. The old attic was dusty, but the rule in the back was dustier, and the old grandfather clock was the dustiest of all. Early, earlier, earliest. The meeting started early, but the presentation began even earlier, and the lunch break was the earliest of all. Easy, easier, Easiest. Math was my easiest subject in school, but English was harder and science was the hardest of all. Faint, fainter, faintest. The music grew fainter as I walked farther away, until it was the faintest whisper in the distance.